Since the dawn of time, there has existed an elite warrior class. Those with the courage and the skill to protect society have always set themselves apart. Whether they are military, first responders, or even private citizens, these heroes dare to put their lives on the line and stand between good people and the wolves that would seek to do them harm. Regardless of uniform or title, these chosen few share one thing in common. They are sheepdogs. Join us each week as the Sheepdog Project explores what it truly means to live the life of a modern warrior and tells the incredible, courageous stories of those who have chosen to pick up the mantle of the sheepdog.
Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast formerly known as Mind of the Warrior, henceforth to be known as the Sheepdog Project. That's not the only change, my friends, because now it's not just the doc. With me is my co-host, the one and only, the incomparable, Mr. Tim Kennedy. How you doing, brother?
Spectacular.
All right, so Tim just rode over here.
Vroom.
Vroom. We're recording this in the palatial Sheepdog Studios. We spare no expense here. So basically, we're just going to be talking today a little bit about what this podcast is going to be all about. Slight change in direction from what you guys have heard before. So to start off, let me ask you a question. And I've never asked you this through all the time we've known each other. So, and you know, you said the story on my podcast. You said it on multiple podcasts, multiple interviews. That you decided to 9/11 is when you decided to come in. What made you decide to do the 18 X-ray, go SF, as opposed to going Ranger, doing SEAL, doing some? I mean, you could have done anything. What made you decide SF's the way for me?
Everything that I was reading, it looked like Army Special Forces were going to be the first, and normally have been the first into the fight. Mm-hmm. While the tip of the spear when you get into the special operations community is actually a lot broader than people think. There's a lot of units that are all the way at the tip. All of them have a much different purpose, and there's a different design to how they all work. You know that, coming from Special Forces and Rangers, and working on kind of all edges of that spear. Army Special Forces, they're the ones that get there first. They start working with locals. You know, they're kind of they're ambassadors within a bazooka. You know,
yeah.
They're the warrior poet. They are, I think, the most intelligent fighting force that do things unlike anybody else. Mm-hmm. You know, you have knuckle draggers that kick in doors, but nobody can go in there, speak the language, understand the culture, be one with the people, and then show the people really what freedom looks like and how it's always within grasp.
Yeah. You know, I've said it time and time again, and I know you'll relate to this. A Special Forces NCO on the ground has a greater scope and reach than any ambassador in any embassy anywhere. I mean, you really are. You know, you're an armed ambassador. You're a force multiplier. You're working with the people. I think we understand the people on the ground better than anybody else. That's what I found.
Yeah, not only the people, we understand the fight.
Yeah.
We understand ultimately what's needed to win. I think one of the most difficult jobs has always been trying to explain what has to happen for us to win a fight, for us to win a battle, for us to even to win a war, up through the chain of command. You know, you have kind of Special Forces, which is so ingrained in the culture and the people there because that's who we're fighting with. You know, very rarely are we fighting by ourselves. I always have 5, 6, 10, 20, a few hundred locals with me that are, you know, that's my fighting force. And then taking what we learn and how we want to fight or how we want to battle and then taking it up through the chain of command and be like, okay, if you want to win this war, this is what has to happen. You know, no, you can't just walk into a village and start burning houses down. That's not how it works. You can't drop bombs on schools. It doesn't work. Let's really look at this and see how we can win these battles by, with, and through the people. Yeah.
Well, and especially, you know, the conflict that we're talking about now, because if this, you know, conflicts historically have been about, if you go back, you know, the Franco-Prussian War, or as far back as you want to go, it was about taking land. You have something and we want it, or we're going to move in your land and we're going to take it. Well, yeah, if you want to annihilate an entire people, you know, they used to talk about, you know, plowing up the soil and laying salt so nothing would grow there. You know, if you're going to do that, that's an entirely different kind of warfare. But that's not the kind of warfare we fight anymore, because we never, as much as fingers get pointed at us and we get accused, we never wanted to conquer or take over anyone. We wanted to affect change, and you can only do that. You can't do that through attrition, like you said. You can't bomb people into seeing things your way. Yeah, it's just not going to happen.
I mean, almost for 100 years, we haven't been fighting for land. We've been fighting against an ideology. We've been fighting against, whether it was fascism or communism or now radical Islam. It's just been fanatic maniacs, one after the other.
Yeah. Some of the people on the other side. I mean, obviously when Hitler moved into the Sudetenland or moved into Poland, for him it was about land and it was about buffers. But no, you're absolutely right. At the end, it came down to ideology.
No,
yeah.
We didn't want to speak German. We didn't want to speak Japanese,
and we didn't want to make them speak English. No. When all was said and done, we didn't. That's not the way it is.
And it was the same in the Korea War. It was the same in the Vietnam War, and it was the same in Persian Gulf War, and now it's the same in the Middle East, in Afghanistan and Iraq. We don't want Iraqis to speak English. We don't want that land. I'm fairly positive there's not a single politician who's like, yeah, let's set up a home here.
Yeah, I don't see a Denny's going up anywhere in the strip mall, anything like that. Well, did you look? I mean, did you consider? Did you entertain like, oh, maybe I could be a SEAL? I mean, especially being from California, the ocean.
Yeah.
That's kind of the. I don't know. At the end of the day, where the SEALs get most of their recruiting base from, but the stereotypical image is always, well, it's the California boys.
Yeah.
They go to do it.
I went into the Navy recruiting office, the Marine recruiting office. I was in grad school when 9/11 happened, so the Navy really wanted me to finish grad school and go to OCS. The Marines, for me to go to MARSOC, which at the time was just recon, you had to be a rifleman first. And so they're like, just enlist in the infantry as a rifleman, and then you can go to selection. And I was like, I wanted the fastest way to get into the most elite units I could. And so I was like, well, what's the best and fastest way to get me to the first selection? And then from the first selection to the second to the third, whatever it needed to be to, crawl my way up that damn spear.
Yeah. It was even back in the 80s when I went in. And
the 80s?
Yeah, the 80s.
The 80s?
In 1984. June 26, 1984 is when I shipped off. But I talked to all the recruiters too. The Marine recruiter in my hometown there's no other way to say it, he was just a dickhead. It was like he wanted to argue with, and it's like, this guy was a staff sergeant in the Marine Corps, and he's arguing with high school juniors over who's the toughest, and not a really good representation of the Marine Corps. The Navy recruiters, none of the recruiters could tell you about the SEALs because none of them had ever been one. They might have been on a ship or been on a base and seen some, but at that time, all they could tell you was, well, you come in as a swabby, as a deck ape, and you pick one of these jobs, and then a couple years down the road, you can volunteer to be assessed. And by the way, in the meantime, you're going to have to do this job and everything to go. And none of those jobs appealed to me. And I'm like, well, what if I get, pretty confident in my abilities to make it, but what if I just get stuck in one of those jobs? And then they wanted me based on I'm sure you had high ASVAB scores as I did. They said, well, based on your ASVAB scores, we want you to go on a nuclear submarine. And then he lets it slip out. Oh yeah, that's a real low strength job. And I'm like, so is it hard to get out of? He goes, oh yeah, once you get in, you can't get out. I'm like, aha. So basically, you're telling him he can come down for 2 years from now, and I can't volunteer for Jack because I'm I having been in the military, I was smart enough to kind of see that, and we didn't have the SF option. So I went Rangers first. I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
I'm glad I got to see that aspect of it first and do that and do the not conventional part, but do the major force part before doing the force multiplier part.
Yeah. I think it's been a big piece missing from my career. Coming up on 15 years in special operations, and I don't know anything about the Army. I don't
think you're missing out on it either.
I know, but I don't know the struggles that guys have as privates. I don't understand the counting bullets and beans. Special Forces is, we're rich in the sense that there's a lot of very intelligent men that understand what we need to do the job, and we get the tools that we need to do that job. That's not how it usually is,
No, and you were fortunate too, because only being a wartime SF soldier.
Yeah.
Because the creep that we saw in the 90s, especially in the Clinton administration, we were doing our own motor stables. Yeah. We were doing our own, you had to go to the ammo handlers class and sit in it for a week because you had to draw your own ammo when you wanted to do a range. I had to go to a week-long course as an 18 Charlie. I had to go to a week-long course on how to be the hazmat guy, to fill out all the hazmat forms when you put them on a plane. Yeah. And we had to do all of that ourselves. And it was important to be self-sustaining, and it gives you a great big picture. But, the teams, most of what I know about the difference, I know from guys like Jeff Pouch, who was my junior and eventually became a warrant officer in 7th Group. And he's like, yeah, Mike, we get to do our job now. Now it is. In wartime, it is what we always thought it would be, that we couldn't be, back in the 90s.
Yeah, I think we're coming into, while we might be winding down the wars, we're going to do something that we maybe haven't done in the past 10 years, which is have a focus on winning. Yeah. A focus on winning them.
Right. So much winning.
Yeah, there's a lot of winning that's coming up here in the very near future. So I re-enlist next month.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if I was going to coming into the November elections. It had less to do with who ultimately won the presidency, whether it was Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, but more about who was going to be their cabinet selections for what I think really shape what the military looks like. That's Secretary of Defense, Homeland Security, and National Security Advisor. Those three really, on the military side, have a lot to do with our life. And looking at who we have in there right now, I am super excited.
No, you should be,
to put my hand back up.
And that's you never know. You see that candidate. And we saw it when George W. Bush took over. And in my opinion, one of the mistakes that he made early on, and he was trying to be a reach across the aisle kind of guy, and he kept a lot of people left over from the Clinton administration. The one that pisses me off the most was the head of the CIA, who I put a huge burden of 9/11 on his shoulders. And this was a guy that the only reason he had risen as high as he was the guy who would get coffee at meetings so everybody knew his name. And then he basically ended up as head of the CIA.
Yeah.
I hate
that guy. I hate those guys.
Yeah.
And it's never good coffee.
No, it's never good coffee. And they're going and getting projector light bulbs and everything else. But you never know when a new president comes into office. Are they just going to look at, is it going to be just the next person in line who was waiting in the wings from the previous administration? Yeah. And if you do that, you're not affecting change. And people have knocked President Trump a lot because he's getting all these generals in there. They're generals with track records of guys who know how to get things done.
They're winners.
Yeah.
These are dudes that know nothing about anything but success.
No.
Every one of them.
No, these are not Shinsekis. These are not Odiernos. These are not butlers. These are not people who sat around and wrote the right culturally sensitive paper when they were in Command and General Staff College and shook all the right hands and went all to the right parties. These are guys who weren't afraid to tell it like it is in meetings.
That drove across the desert with 9 tanks and then destroyed 80. Without losing a single casualty. Yep. That's who we have as a national security advisor, who pretty much went 90-0 as a pro fighter.
Yeah.
The most winningest tank commander in the history of tanks.
Yeah.
That's now. And then he goes on to write books about how we failed as a military and as a bureaucracy, or the bureaucratic problems of the military not really holding the politicians responsible for the Vietnam War. And then ultimately, when his perspective, losing the war because of our inability to do what we're trained and made to do, which is fight and win, make the green grass grow. No,
that's a classic example. I mean, you can win all the battles and still lose the war, because if you don't win it politically, like you said, if you don't have the full spectrum look at it, from the Department of State through Department of Defense and all the way down the line, you're not going to win those conflicts, and you're not going to affect change, and it's all going to be cyclical. You're going to continue to fight those wars again and again and again.
So this podcast,
yes,
it's about winning.
It is about winning. It's about being a sheepdog.
Yeah, it's about unlike a professional fight, unlike a round of golf, when it comes to what we train people to do, you got one shot. Mm-hmm. You have to be ready for that one chance. You have to train your entire life for what might be one moment.
Yeah.
One moment that's going to determine if your wife is going to be raped. It's determined if somebody's going to come into your home, take your stuff, kill your kids, and leave. If they're going to mug you, kill you, take your car, and leave you on the side of the road. You got one chance. And if it's an occupational thing, if you go out every night on duty, you put on your blue uniform, your tan uniform, lace up those boots, hop in a fire truck, get in the back of an ambulance. In your case, ER, soldier, whatever that job is, you're occupationally in a position of saving and taking lives. And are you ready? You signed up for it. You raised your hand. You went to supposedly the training. I'm using quotation fingers to indicate the most pathetic era of the focus on all the wrong things. Police officers making bad decisions, shooting the wrong people. It's not that their heart's in the wrong place, because it's not.
No, they
don't have the right training.
You got to give people the tools. If people don't have the tools, you can take the person with the best of intentions and give them shit tools, and they're not going to be able to do the job. And and you hit the nail on the head. It's them, but it's everybody, and it's every day of your life. And I said this a long time ago. I don't remember exactly what the situation was. I said life is an open book test, but it's also a timed event. So meaning it's an open book test, the resources are out there. So you have no excuse not to use them. And how much time you have in this event is dictated largely upon the choices that you make. And if you make bad choices, it can be over tomorrow. And if you make good choices and you use the resources that are out there, you can have a long and fruitful life.
Yeah. This is people I think, in an era of entitlement and handouts and free phones and free healthcare and free education and all the other things that are supposedly free, people have lost sight of the choices it takes to be successful. Mm-hmm. All of them. It's not just one. It's not even 10. It's not 50. It's thousands. It's every day. It's little tiny choices, down to what are you going to eat? How long are you going to sit on the couch? Are you really going to go buy a video game and sit in front of the TV? What are you going to do with your time? Those choices, when you line them up, and even in a trajectory that's perfectly linear, and you just start looking at every one of those choices, how efficient you were. Should you have gone to this college or that college? Should you have played this sport or that sport? Should you have even been an athlete at all, or just played chess? Obviously, everybody doesn't have to have the same path, but everybody that's successful has something in common, and that is that they made the small decisions to be proficient at what they chose to do, to be successful at what they dreamed of doing. Everybody has aspirations. Well, those are always going to be unrealized if you don't choose the hard right over the easy wrong. It comes down to individual responsibility, which is a foundational pillar of being a sheepdog. Individual responsibility. You and I talked about this briefly about I spent a couple years as a prison guard. Almost the worst job I've ever had. Not quite rough, I can imagine. Quite the worst job I've ever had. But the common thing there was bad decisions. Everybody was there. That's people that say, oh, there's a lot of mean dudes in there. No, they're not mean necessarily. They're not evil. They're not badasses. If you got 100 people out of prison population and 100 people off the street and lined them up and said fight each other,
it'd probably be dead even. There's not the myth that there's a lot
dead
of
even.
dead even. There's not a lot of badasses in prison. There's a lot of people who made bad choices. Bad choices. And like you say, it was a series of bad choices. Because I chose to do this, and then I doubled down on stupid by doing this, and then I did this, and then ultimately I went out one night and I broke into somebody's house, and oh, by the way, in robbing their house, I left a ball cap in their living room that had my name and address written on the bill. True story. We had a guy in there that's how he got arrested. Okay, it's a series of bad choices. I did on my last podcast, I talked about taking ownership of your health, and then actually right after seeing it, I saw who was Deepak Chopra. I saw him on Fox. And he even took it to another level. He said, 5% of disease is genetic and 95% of it is behavior related. And I see that every day in my job, that series of bad, like you're talking about, the decision to stay on the couch, the decision to eat a Krispy Kreme, the decision to drink soda instead of water, the decision to not exercise today. Boom, 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 boom. I have people come in that are 10 years into their diabetes, and I'm like, Tell me what you ate today. No doctor's ever asked me that. Well, tell me what you ate today. Well, I had a bowl of cereal. Okay, stop. That means you had a bowl of sugar. Yeah. What did you do after? Well, I drank a big glass of orange juice. Stop. Don't do that. Okay, what'd you have for lunch? Oh, I was really good for lunch. I had a smoothie. What was in the smoothie? Stop. It's a series of decisions, like anything.
I mean, my breakfast before I went to the gym this morning, and it's Saturday, my 6th day in a row of training, was 2 eggs and 1 egg white, with steel-cut oats, a little bit of fruit, and a nice big old cup of black coffee. It's not hard, once you start making those little choices. 50%. Everybody talks about what are we going to do with healthcare? What are we going to do with Obama? Obamacare is eating itself. It is going to be destroyed. The best thing for this administration to do politically is to take a step back and just let it rot. It would destroy everything about the medical system. It would eat everything about the insurance system. Nobody in 2 years would have any insurance, and it would be so catastrophic. Everybody on both sides of the aisle would be begging and pleading for a solution. That would be the best thing to do politically. But unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I'm not sure which, we have some people that believe that it's their duty to best provide for the American people. So something has to be done. 50% of all insurance money is spent on 1% of the people that put the money in.
Yep.
So if you have 100 people, 50% of all of the money generated from those 100 people go to essentially 1%, one person out of that 100.
Yep.
If you want to look at that 1%, and look at similar characteristics that go across that entire 1%, they're horrifically obese. They've made bad decisions about what they do with their time, what they put into their body, both what they eat, what they smoke, what they... I can't even say how they exercise because none of them ever do.
No.
I mean, it's not difficult. There's no real science needed behind the idea of being healthy. It just takes a little bit of effort.
There's a couple of societal problems that I see. One is through movies and television, we have convinced people that life should be way more comfortable than it is. Like you should always be in this comfortable bubble. Yeah. And that's just the way life can be that way for you. Life can be wonderful. I have a wonderful life. You have a wonderful life. It is not without some payment. That you make some sacrifices, that you do some hard work. There is no pill that's going to fix that. And that's the other part of it and I don't like to jump on the I hate big pharma bandwagon, but they have convinced people you can live however you want.
I hate big pharma.
Here's a pill that's going to fix it.
Yeah.
Eat tons of lard. We got a pill for your cholesterol. Eat all the sugar you want. We got a pill for your diabetes. Let your blood pressure go sky high from not exercising. We got a pill for that too. And I literally have people come in. Do you have any medical problems? No. Well, it says here you're on an antihypertensive, an anti-cholesterol medicine, and a diabetic medicine. Well, yeah, but I take the medicine so I don't have those problems anymore.
No, bro. You got those problems.
You got those problems. And I'm like, and I'll ask people, I asked one guy, what are you doing to get off of those meds? He goes, what do you mean? I'm like, diet, exercise, what are you doing? No, once you have those things, you have them. And he said to me, no bullshit, I'm old and broke. The guy's 45. I'm like, I'm 6 years older than you, bro.
Yeah.
And I'm not taking any of that.
There's so much freedom on the other side of work.
Yeah.
I mean, it is true.
On the other side of work, exactly.
You want liberty, you want health, you want true satiated life where you're fulfilled sexually, physically, financially. There's not a pill for it. There's not an easy route. The story of the reality television star that made money does not exist. That was created, fabricated, and that person was cultivated for that job.
It's manufactured.
Everything is.
It's a complete fantasy.
The only way to get there is through perseverance, determination, and hard work.
But that's not what people are hearing. People are hearing, well, there's these lucky 1%.
Yeah.
These lucky 1%, and they were just born into it. And the only difference between you and them is they were lucky. Because nobody will ever look anybody else in the eye and say, you always hear that, well, those people are working hard too. Well, yeah, some of them are. Some of them have bad circumstances. I have no doubt. But I see a lot of people that aren't doing jack, and they got their hand out.
Yeah.
And it's not just about lifestyle. It's not just about health. It's about personal security, which is what this show is about. You got to put in you want to live a peaceful and safe life? Put in the work. Do the training.
Yeah.
Get to the range. Get to the gym. You got to do all of those things. What do we got coming up for Sheepdog? What's our next event?
Next weekend in Austin, Texas, we have a TCCC based course.
Oh yeah, that's me. I should know that.
Yeah, this is all you. So this is essentially, we joke, how simple our job is. We want to keep the blood in the good guys and let blood out of the bad guys.
Yep.
Like that's pretty much when you boil it down. We want to put bad dudes on the ground and we want to keep the good guys off the ground. Now there's two parts to that. One, it's being proficient in being able to hit the bad guy and not get hit yourself. Be able to, in some cases, put rounds down range and you not get hit. Be able to stab but not get stabbed. Be able to situationally aware that prevents any of those things from ever having to happen. The tail of that coin is not necessarily the offense side, but also the protection and preservation of life.
Yeah.
And that's what this is. That's the foundation of this course. It is through what you have done for the past freaking 30 years.
32.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, your entire experience as a ranger, as a Green Beret, as now a doctor specializing in emergency medicine, as a combat field doctor, like all of that has boiled down. Like you want to talk about the refiner's fire of hard work, of chaff in the wind. Every metaphor you could possibly get of shaking out the bad and leaving you just the good. That's what your career has brought us to right now. And we're getting to our first course ever through Sheepdog Response, where we're going to provide what I think is the best, most comprehensive product, plan, curriculum. I don't know what the right word is. It's the best shit
Philosophy
to save people's lives.
Yeah. I'm excited about it. I'm really excited about it. And I made the video that we put up on the Facebook page. I'm really pumped up to teach this, and I was, I'm going through the numbers because it's important that I can give people numbers, because it's not just my opinion that this works. We have facts to back it up. Yep. And I was going through the slides again today because I want to be really prepared. And I'm trying to limit the number of slides. I want it to be a lot more hands-on, but there's so much data. In order to keep it straight, I got to use the slides. That, and plus, in order to keep the backbone of the TCCC curriculum, I have to do that. But one of them that just really, really sticks in my mind, and that is, out of the casualties that were determined to have had survivable wounds if they had intervened, if one of these interventions that we're going to teach in this course had been implemented. Big Army, it's 24%. So that's not the casualty rate, but that's when we did look at the casualties. You know what? 24% of these still could have been saved if they would have had one of these interventions. That's big Army, big DoD wide. Ranger Regiment, 3%.
Yeah.
Because every single Ranger does this training. The training that we're going to do this weekend, every single Ranger has had it. Every single Ranger has these tools. They're not only experts at fieldcraft, experts at the art of combat, they have this training. So when their buddy goes down, boom, it's like clockwork.
Yeah.
It's and 3%, and that's an incredible number.
I don't even know what, again, back to, I have no idea what Army, the big Army, is actually supposed to do. In special operations, it seems like I do this quarterly.
Yeah. So here's the thing, and I know this from having been the medical director of the Mystic site. It's supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be that, and not quarterly, I think it was annually, is the big Army requirement. What we thought when I was medical director of the Mystic training site at Fort Hood, to us, our big moneymaker was putting people through the TCCC All Combatants course. That was our biggest point of pride, is we're getting the infantrymen trained, we're getting the tankers trained, the Cav Scouts, they're all getting it, right? They took the Ranger First Responder program, and they also developed what was called the Pegasus First Responder program, which is very, very similar and is just a great program. AMED, who funds the Mystic Training Center, does not give two shits. All they care about is how many 68 whiskey sustainments did you put on? How many flight medical sustainments did you put on? That's all we care about. And that's all we want to finance. We don't care about that other thing. So Army Medical Command doesn't even get it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the line commanders see the value in it. The line doggies see the value in it. AMED is like, we don't at a briefing, we don't care about those numbers. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, but that's like extra. It's like, well, I don't see that as extra.
I mean, it's almost the same right now. I have had, since we announced that this course is going to be happening, I have had countless SWAT guys and police officers and firefighters be like, I'm interested, but wouldn't my time be better spent going to another shooting course, going to Sheepdog 2, or coming back to Sheepdog to get better at the fighting, to get better at the cuffing, to get better at the weapon retention, weapon takeaway. I was like, hey, are you not listening to what we're saying?
Yeah.
It is as important. It is as important. You got two things: let the blood out of the bad guys, keep the blood in the good guys.
Because there's two things wrong with their theory. Number one, we're never going to make you bulletproof. Never. Our courses are amazing and everybody should go, but we're never going to make you bulletproof. And also, are you ever going to be in a situation where literally everybody to your left and right has been to Sheepdog 2? No.
Yeah.
What if you're responding to a supermarket holdup or a liquor store holdup? That little old lady didn't go to Sheepdog 2.
No.
So she got shot. So now you have to save her life because, the sheepdog, I was thinking of this the other day. The sheepdog can go up in the mountains and kill wolves all day long, and the shepherd's never going to know or care. But as soon as the shepherd sees a sheep bleeding to death, he's going to look at the sheepdog.
Yeah.
Hey, this is on you, man.
You didn't do your job, or
Right.
What are you going to do now?
Right. It's not just about engaging the wolf. It's about protecting the sheep. And that's about, not just putting your own tourniquet on, putting somebody else's tourniquet on and knowing how to save their life.
Yeah,
I think once the word gets out, at least I hope, once the word gets out, once some people have been through the course, they go back to their departments and they talk about this, people will see the value in it.
Yeah. There might be an element of trying to, just like everything, when you learn a little bit more, it's like you're seeing the wizard behind the curtain. Like the smoke and mirrors are gone.
Yeah. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
And, and in this occupation, in this profession, saving and taking lives, I could train people all the time. Doc Simpson, how do you have time to do this? Like, I don't. I don't have time to get all of the training I need, to go to all the courses I want to go to be in the perfect physical condition that I want to be in, to shoot enough, to fight enough, to all the things that I need to do. There's not enough time. But I definitely dedicate every single second I can to being the best version of myself. And this is one of those courses. This is one of those where you have to have these tools on your tool belt or people are going to die. Could you on one hand, two hands, your hands and your feet, if I handed you a piece of paper, start just jotting down dash marks for every time that you've used the things that you're going to teach?
I wouldn't even begin to know how to count it. You know, I would literally have to replay every single one of my deployments to include the drug war deployments in my head, all of those, times that I've used it in civilian life, obviously, times I've used it in the ER. I mean, that's a little bit obviously there. I mean, you're in the crucible, so you're going to have to. But no, I couldn't count it. I mean, you know, and granted that was my job, but you know, there's so many, and that's the thing, is there's so many success stories about how this stuff has worked. You know, very few people come home from war and tell the war story about how they put a chest seal on somebody or put a tourniquet or put a hemostatic gauze on somebody. You know, those aren't the stories people want to hear over bourbon around the fire. You know, they want to hear about that guy's head exploding. Yeah. You know, so maybe what we're doing, you know, is it's not necessarily sexy. I mean, obviously I think it's important. You think it's important. I hope the word gets out, you know, and it's not, you know, for me, the way I see it is not only did I invest 32 years of my life in the military, but the military invested 32 years in me. And for me just to sit on all this, it would be like the epitome of being selfish. I could pack up an RV right now and I could drive around Texas doing locums work, and I could work $300 an hour in all these ERs and just completely turn my back on this for the rest of my life and retire in 5 years. But that's not me. That's not what I'm about. You know, I want to continue to train. I want to pass on this knowledge.
Yeah. There's a funny thing where right now a lot of veterans have a degree of entitlement. Like, I deserve this or I deserve that. And we're still here talking about how much more we have to sacrifice, how much more selfless we need to be, and how much more we need to give, because that's ultimately like what we swore we'd do.
Yeah, I'm still above ground. I'm still drawing breath.
Yeah, so you're going to work.
So I'm still in the fight.
You know, I don't think I could count, and I'm a knuckle dragger. I'm a Special Forces sniper, Ranger qualified Green Beret. Like, I'm not supposed to be the guy, like in the perspective of warfighters. I'm not the dude that's supposed to be saving lives. I can't tell you how many times I've put a tourniquet on somebody. I've been in training rooms and seen somebody get shot and put a tourniquet on somebody. I have been obviously in combat. I have been on the side of the road. I have been in bars. Like you're gonna use this stuff. Mm-hmm. And if you are in a police car, if you are in a fire truck and you don't know these things, and I promise you, you don't. If you're listening to this right now, you're like, oh yeah, man, I got a tourniquet on my belt. You know, it's like, great, bro. I mean, I'll high five you for that, but there's so much more you need to know. Mm-hmm. And there's so much more that you need to be able to do to be proficient, or not even proficient. I mean, just to get like a satisfactory quasi thumbs up. You got to come. You have to go to these courses, and there's a lot of them. There's not, actually. There's not enough of them, but this is the best.
Yeah, there's some out there, and some are good. I know some guys that teach some good ones. Some are shady. I've seen some shady shit out there, and that's I don't know if you saw that video that I shared on one of the Sheepdog pages of the guy showing how to do that casualty carry that looks like a jiu-jitsu move.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's I don't even want to talk about it. It's just complete bullshit.
It looked really cool though.
It's really cool.
It did look cool.
It looks cool. Yeah, it looks something fun to do at a backyard barbecue.
It's a diving barrel roll, grabbing the guy's leg and going to a fireman's carry.
Yeah, I'm sure you would probably, good chance you could dislocate your own shoulder doing it.
I'm pretty sure you can't. I can't do that in kit.
No, there's no way you could do it in kit. There's no way you could do it.
I couldn't even do it with a gun belt on.
And you would literally, not only that, but you would literally, could you do, imagine some of the mud wall rooms you were in Afghanistan. Could you have done it in there? Could you have gotten enough of a running start to do that? I mean, there's no way. How many IEDs are you going to trip? Dragging that guy to the right place to do it and then getting a running start to do this ridiculous barrel roll.
It looked cool, though.
Yeah, well, you notice they were doing it like on a soccer field, on nice grass, in workout clothes, Yeah,
if only we could be in all gunfights in soccer on a soccer field while you're wearing 5'11" pants.
Yeah, Carlos Hathcock used to talk about that when he used to teach sniper courses. He's like, he said, you go to the range and you're in your bubble. And he's like, you got overhead cover a lot of times. You got to, it's raining. We're not going to go to the range today. You got this, you got that. He's like, that's not what combat is like. That's you got to make it real.
Yeah.
You got to put your kit on. You got to do the whole thing.
Even here with probably about half the sheepdog instructors live in the Central Texas area, and if it's hot, if it's raining, it's like what people would think to be the worst conditions ever to go and train. We're like, oh, hell yeah, this is the best day to go out. It's
like that scene at the beginning of Point Break when Utah's at the range in the driving rain. The original Point Break, not the shitty remake.
I just love the I don't even know where it came from back 50, 100 years where it's raining and that's good NCO training weather. Mm-hmm. Like where'd that come from?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's awesome though. But that's the idea.
I remember. I mean, I went to, as did you. I'm sure I went to basic training at Benning in the summertime, and it's like you go from scorching hot to driving rain, back and forth. And then when I got to RIP to get into 175, and that was back when they used to run it there at Hunter in Savannah, and we were on the rappel tower, and it started raining, and I'm thinking, well, this is probably pretty dangerous in the rain, so it's probably going to have a stop. And they're like, what are you waiting on, Ranger? I'm thinking, this wood's going to be pretty slippery. Well,
yes, it will.
I guess you'll just have to do everything right then, won't you?
Right tools, right training, win or lose. You only get one shot at it.
Exactly. You got to train like you fight. I think that's the takeaway from this first episode. Train like you fight. Be prepared for anything.
Lots of little choices.
Yep, along the way. You got to make the right ones. I'm really excited about the new direction of the podcast. I'm really excited to have you as a co-host, my brother. We're going to put out some great stuff, and I hope we're going to keep the Mind of the Warrior audience and pick up a whole new audience as well as the Sheepdog Project expands in the months and years to come.
I mean, some of the people that we have lined up in the next few months to come out here, from the Alex Acostas, the Travis Joyners, the Blake Hayes. Some of the most proficient dudes in shooting, fighting, the legal ramifications of shooting and fighting.
Yeah. Which also is important.
Yeah, it's kind of important. We're going to have arts and crafts days with yours truly, Tim Kennedy, on the podcast. We're going to have. Maybe we'll live stream some of these on Facebook. Like the stuff that we have lined up in the next couple of months, I think it's going to be some of the best content on the internet.
Don't miss it.
No. Good stuff coming up.
Yeah, it's going to be great stuff. All right, brother. A pleasure, as always. I think we're at a good time for a stopping point. So everybody, thanks a lot for listening. Make sure you catch us next week. It's only going to keep getting better. I promise. And as always, I'm going to leave you with a quote from the late, great Winston Churchill. Courage is what it takes to stand up and speak. Courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen. Have a great week, everybody, and be a sheepdog.
You have been listening to the Sheepdog Project. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Sheepdog Response. The views expressed on this podcast are those of the individual and do not represent any larger entity, public or private.